tell this to every new officiant that I appoint, that I train, that I talk to. It's not the script. That's
Yeah.
not what it is. It's how can you make somebody feel on the biggest day of their life? It's not the words. You need to figure out what's your style and then lean into that thing and become exceptionally good at your style.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode. Today we have Jeff joining us, and I think you guys are in for a real treat when it comes to his story and learning all about him. I have to admit something, though. The first time I met Jeff, I, of course, started to boss him around. Like I do. But to be fair, the stakes were high. This is one of the biggest weddings we had ever done. And I didn't know you. And I came up to you and I was very much like, okay, this is how it has to happen. This is what we have to do. And just so you know, these are the things that I expect. And I was just like very on top of you. And you took it like a pro. And I appreciate you because I feel like I felt a little bit abrasive, but it was just more for my side. I was like, I just want everything to go perfectly, and you are a rock star. And to this day, I still talk about how amazing you are and at what you do. And so I'm so excited to be able to chat with you today and learn about how you got to where you are today.
What an intro. That's unbelievable. Guys, first of all, you weren't that abrasive, so don't worry. And I fully recognized too when I got there, look, you guys have a job to do. This is a very big wedding. There's a lot of moving parts going on here. And truthfully, I was kind of the new guy jumping in there, right? It was a different city, different region. I hadn't done weddings in Ottawa before. And so I was a bit of like the new guy. Nobody really knew what I was about there, and not that I would expect them to. And so I'm glad that you took initiative too, because I think sometimes that doesn't happen, and then the couple doesn't get that perfection that they're kind of striving for if everyone's not on the same page. So you killed it that day. You led it super well. I'm thankful for it, and I'm glad that we could laugh about it afterwards. You saw like, okay, Jeff has like a pretty good idea of what he's doing here. Like we had a great time. It was super fun. You guys captured amazing content. Like it was really incredible.
Maybe we'll see if we can work some editing magic. There may or may not be a recording of what I said to you, so we'll see if we can.
Nice. We'll
see how abrasive it was.
We can confirm.
Yeah, if we can confirm the abrasiveness, I think that would be a pretty cool little insert here. Jeff, start us off. I'd love to sort of have you intro what you do, because you do lots of things. And so tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Sounds great. My name is Jeff Maeck. We have a business called Maeck Weddings, which is officiating and planning based out of Kitchener-Waterloo. We own a small venue in Kitchener called the DTK Chapel, where we do weddings 7 days a week, which is awesome. And we also have a charity that we started a couple of years ago. It's called Togetherness Collective. I just got back from Guatemala. We were able to fund a home fully for a family that needs it there through support of donors and other people in the wedding community. So we're all in the wedding space, and we're pretty big marriage advocates. This is our whole life. We've really committed ourselves to it. And I'm thankful to kind of be able to work in different parts of the industry, but all with the same goal. It's basically encouraging people to have great marriages. And that's what I get to do every day of the week. And then I get to hang out with you guys and chat about it. So thank you guys.
Thank you. I think what we want to know is, how did you get to this process? So walk us back, maybe even start like as early as like, maybe what did you go to school for, if you did or didn't? Like, I'd love to sort of see like that progression of how you got into weddings, because I feel like that is so unique to everybody in their own way. And I don't know it. So this is going to be new for me too.
Cool. I'm excited to share some of it with you. Believe it or not, years ago, so we're going back to 2009, 2010, in my prettier days 15 years ago when I wasn't so grizzled and gray, I used to model in the wedding industry with my wife, Michelle. And so in that space, we did get to know photographers, hair and makeup videographers, venues, basically everyone that was already in that space. And my job at that point was just to wear suits and try and look good on stage. We kind of ended up being the go-to people, especially Michelle, my wife, for all things wedding related. People planning weddings, trying to figure out how to do it. They would just ask us, and we say, well, look, we already know all these people. And one day I said to Michelle, look, I actually think this is like a business that we could do. Everyone's already asking you to do this. You're kind of doing it for free already. Why don't we give this a go? And we did a couple weddings to kind of see how it went. We loved it, and it was a blast. As you guys know, I mean, once you get into the wedding space, you're kind of hooked by the energy and the excitement of that industry. You're surrounded by these incredibly creative people on the biggest moment of someone's life. Like, it's like a convergence of so many good things that we're just kind of hooked by it. We didn't do it full time. I'll speak for myself. I didn't do it full time at that time. I've been doing sales for a long time. I'd also been a guy who I was hired by a bunch of different franchises to, I guess what we'll call retool their stores. And that's maybe like a nicer way of saying, get the right people in place at that location, train them up, teach them some sales, some culture, how to treat people really well, and kind of shift on to the next one and repeat the process. So I was always pretty good at being conversational, at helping people learn how to have good conversations with people, how to make people feel valued, feel understood. I had also done a lot of ministry work leading up to that point. I had led trips to Guatemala with the university before as well. That was back 2009, 10, 11. And so I'd taken 35 students with me down there. Pretty wild time to do that. That's what we'll call kind of the meaningful work. So if you're bookmarking it, I did really meaningful work followed by what we'll call kind of sales types roles, and realized really quickly, it's probably the same experience that a lot of people have. Man, the meaningful work is so much more fulfilling. Life's too short to be doing work that I'm not excited about. I felt if I could figure out how to organize my life to do more of this meaningful work, I would be really happy. I didn't want to wait. I didn't want to figure out, later in life, it's probably something I could do. Someday I might be able to do that. There's this great Tim Ferriss quote. I love Tim Ferriss, the author, podcaster. He says, the timing for everything important in life always sucks. The traffic lights of life are never green all at the same time. Someday is a disease that will take your dreams to the grave with you. I think about that a lot, how people put off their dreams, put off what they want to be doing, and say, someday I'll do that. I just decided I'm not doing that. I'm going to do it right now. And I also, by the way, had no idea what I was doing. And I think that's part of the magic in it is you just do it and you figure it out as you go. If you wait until you have an idea of what the heck you're doing, how to build a business, I don't know anything about this, you'll never do it. I just jumped in, you make some mistakes, you correct course along the way, you meet some people who are further along, you ask them to be your mentor, you have great conversations with people, you observe, you absorb as much as humanly possible, and you get as many reps as possible. So for me as officiating, I needed to officiate as many weddings as possible to figure out what's my style, what's my thing, how do I do this thing exceptionally well to the standard that I'm expecting of myself. So I started officiating in 2015 and realized very quickly that I loved it. It was a pretty natural fit for me. I'm slightly outrageous. I like to kind of command a group. I like to make people laugh, have fun. And most of the couples we were planning weddings for at that time, that wasn't really an option. There wasn't a person that was doing that. And after the first few, I loved it. Tried to figure out how to be able to do it all the time. There's not really a roadmap to do officiating full time. Really, it's not a full time job for anybody. It's kind of like a part time thing or a post retirement thing or just a for fun on the weekends type job. That's not going to do it. I just need to do this all the time because if I could focus all of my energy and attention on it, I knew I could be really good at it. But if it was always secondary, if I was going to work during the week, not really thinking about officiating, and then I had to switch gears and think about it on the weekends, there's just no way to be creative. There's no time for me to be able to deliver something that I think is really good. And so a friend of mine said, look, man, you're working a lot. If you were to quit your job that you're doing 40 hours a week, are you telling me you couldn't figure out with those additional 40 hours how to increase your income to replace it with officiating? And that was a bit of a turning point, that conversation where I don't think I'd really considered that before, that, man, you're right. 40 hours of my brain is in a different direction than what I want to be doing. I left the job and focused full time on it. I do really feel like the same conversation with this guy, he said to me, you don't get a lot of breaks or you don't get lucky until you're further into things. He basically was saying, you're going to have doors open to you, opportunities open to you that you would not have had when you're working full time. But once you kind of dive into this thing, you're going to get lucky. I got lucky, but I don't think I would have got lucky while I was still working with my attention somewhere else. So, and that luck was actually when the owner of the old wedding venue that we bought approached me and said, Jeff, I think you'd be the right guy to take this thing over, lead it into the next generation of people who want it. She had it for 20 years. I took a look at it and said, okay, it's not pretty, but it's workable. I can do it. And the model makes sense. And so we bought it during COVID, which is a crazy thing to convince my wife and to actually do, because nobody was doing weddings. And we're like, we should buy a wedding venue. This totally makes sense. And so we invested a whole bunch of money into it, bought it. Man, what a gift that place has been. It has been incredible. The community has really embraced it, has done a good job of helping us promote it. And so that was kind of the secondary piece of, I started officiating larger weddings. We took over the chapel. I started doing smaller weddings. With the charity work that we're doing, it's all in the same group. We are able, one of the things we're actually able to do that's unique is we can appoint wedding officiants in the province of Ontario for the purposes of solemnizing marriages. So we train officiants, we can appoint them to kind of follow that dream for them. And so it's exciting for me to actually now be the guy on the other end to encourage people to do it and then say, look, I want to help you out. I want to help you be successful at this. And I want to help you really raise the bar on excellence of what couples should expect from their wedding day. That is such a long way to tell that story of kind of how those three things came together. But those three things of this Maeck Weddings, DTK Chapel, and Togetherness Collective are the three things that are I'm hyper focused on right now. Man, what a gift it is to wake up and say, this is all I get to do. And I'm so energized by that and so excited about it. It's pretty amazing.
I love it. I feel you can totally hear the passion in your voice, and you can really see that you've taken probably some big risks, and in the sense of, like you said, buying a venue during the pandemic when there were literally zero weddings really being able to happen at that time. I feel like this is really what you're meant to do. Like, I can see just how much it lights you up. It's so cool that you've been able to just go ahead and just like dive right in. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall when you told Michelle, like, hey, let's buy this
Buying this
place.
thing. Oh my gosh. It was something. It took a lot of time thinking about it. I mean, at the time, nobody had any idea what the heck was going on. And here we
Yeah.
are saying, look, like weddings are going to come back. This is going to happen. I think with kind of our brand and our vision for it, we can really propel this thing forward and make it a beautiful destination for people to want to go. And it's located in City Hall. And so previously, if someone said, look, I'm getting married at City Hall, sometimes people would be like, oh my gosh, like, I'm so sorry. But we made the space really, really pretty. And so like the obstacle that we've had to overcome is to rewire people to say, wow, we're getting married at City Hall. Actually, the place is beautiful. And
Yeah.
because it's private, we get to design it as we like. I get to offer the experience that I like. We're not in a boardroom where there's no, clerk or JP who's doing the ceremony. It's me. And that's been a really cool thing.
I
You guys
love
might
it.
relate to this too. Maybe it's in editing that you would experience this, but you ever getting kind of like that flow state when you're working on something and you're just like, you're in the zone. Like things are just, they're easy. I get that sometimes if I'm building a website or if I'm running a ceremony, you lose track of time. Things feel really simple. And I think as we figured things out in this business, things have just felt simpler.
Yeah.
Sure, they've been more complicated. We have staff, we have, a venue, things like that. But you kind of feel like you're really in the groove, like you're really in that sweet spot of life. And I hadn't felt that going back 15 years ago when I was doing some of the ministry work where you feel like, look, this is my spot. This is where I should be. And so to kind of go full circle and feel like I'm back in that spot feels awesome. And I can tell you, when you wake up in the morning and you get to do this, you're not like, oh my gosh, I need the weekend so I can just do nothing. I'm actually like, what are we doing today? Who's getting married? Like, let's go. And that's a cool thing.
And then some people don't even feel that for their whole lives. They never find
That's right.
that spark, that passion. It does take some of that. Like all of my family are in Ottawa. We're all government employees, essentially. Everyone is really conservative. And I remember telling my dad for the first time that I'm going to be a photographer and I'm going to leave my government job that I had, this cushy pension in 30 years kind of thing, to just
Oh
do
my goodness.
our own thing and like be in the arts. He's never been a believer that like the arts can create anything worthwhile of a lifestyle. And that was a hurdle definitely for us. I don't know if you had any pushback from any family members or judgment from friends or any of that.
Look, until like literally a few years ago, my dad would still be like, hey man, there's a place that's hiring for, my dad was a millwright. He'd always be like, there's a job hiring. I'm like, Dad, we're doing all right, man. Like this, we got a pretty good thing going here. And he's like, I just wanted to let you know there's some availability there. They're looking to hire some guys. I'm like, one, I'm terrible on tools. Like I don't know how to do anything. I did that job during like university, few weeks shutdowns kind of thing. Like a factory would shut down. My dad's like, here, I'll get you in and work. And sure, you make a bunch of money, but let me tell you, at 3 a.m. when you use a zip cutter and you're doing who knows what on a machine, you're like, this is my nightmare. Up until literally a few years ago, I had to keep telling my dad, like, dude, I'm not doing that. Like this,
Yeah.
I'm living the life I want to live. I'm really happy about this. I'm excited. It's taken a long time to figure out for it to take shape because you kind of go through a really messy stage of figuring it out. And I don't think you're ever quite there. You don't get that finished product. It's just always evolving. And
Yeah.
you're always in some state of evolving into the next thing, and that's kind of a fun part of it too.
I think up until literally almost like last year, his dad didn't even really believe that we like this was a real job for us, And like you've met us and you know how like intense we are and how hard we work. And then his dad's just like, yeah, but I could always get you a job in the government, Luke. You don't seem that
Thanks.
busy, right?
Oh my goodness. I mean, I think the idea of like kind of being self-employed and doing this type of creative work, it's a little bit newer for our generation that our parents, it wasn't available quite as much for them. And so my dad also my parents sometimes have a bit of a tricky time understanding what it means. They assume I just don't work. Oh, you just like do a ceremony on a Saturday. Dude, I work 7 days a week, like 4 million hours a week. I traded a job where I was working 40 hours a week to work nonstop every day. Like this
Yeah.
is the life I've
It
chosen.
doesn't turn off.
You never like it never turns off. There's always something where like, ooh, I should be working on that or I could do that. And so again, you have to create boundaries because otherwise it'll be all consuming. But yeah, it's been a hilarious ride for them to kind of see how things have gone, and they're kind of now like, okay, like little Jeffrey's doing okay now. I'm like, thanks guys. Like, I'm a grown man, I'm an adult, but I finally figured it out. Thanks.
Yeah. Well,
But yeah,
I always
it's been
tell
good.
him, I always say, you know what? Your almost lack of belief in us is what's motivated me to like prove you wrong.
You sometimes need that motivation. I'm a hyper competitive dude. I played competitive high level sports for a long time, and a lot of that transitioned well into the business space because I exist to build community. It's actually something I'm really good at. but there's also a business side of things to saying it's good to be competitive. It's good to have people kind of put a chip on your shoulder where you're like, I'm gonna prove this person wrong. I'm gonna turn this thing. I'm gonna make this great.
Yeah.
I remember even in high school having a guidance counselor. This is how crazy it is. Probably 20 years ago. Oh my gosh, sitting down in his office talking to me about my options in life, and saying, Jeff, look, I don't know if you're gonna get accepted to university. I had an 80 average. He's like, I don't know if you're gonna get accepted. I was like, oh my gosh, like, what am I gonna do?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they instill that kind of fear. I think about that guy all the time when we're when we're like having success. I'm like, dude, I'm just so thrilled that you gave me that fire to just say, I figured it out. It's all good. And also just the power of words, right? When you think of something someone said 20 years ago that I can still think about and kind of draw on and say, man, that thing's gonna drive me forward today. Like I've not that I have stuff to prove, but it's great motivation to just keep pushing and keep kind of going forward.
All right, let's switch gears here a little bit. Kind of touched on it a little bit. What were some of the things that propel you forward? Like, was there sort of like moments, or I know you said you had a mentor and things like that, but I'd love to sort of see, like, I know you do Maeck weddings as well, like the planning and all that kind of stuff, like, because you've added these pieces. I'm
For
curious
sure.
sort of how that has kind of come to be, if that makes sense.
I think one of the really important things that I've figured out, I shouldn't even say figured out, that seems pretty strong. I know what I'm good at and I know what I'm terrible at. I think like being aware of those things is important for anything that you do, and not having it be a thing that's like doesn't bring me down if I say, look, I'm really terrible at that thing. It actually just it's me understanding a blind spot in my own work and saying I need to find someone to help with that. And so I do that a lot with business, figure out who's better at this and who's like really gifted in it. I'm actually doing them a favor by giving them this work because they're going to excel, and it's just draining for me. When we talk about planning and officiating, although I've helped with the destination planning weddings, like I speak French, speak Spanish, and we've done weddings in Spain and in France. We were in Italy, so I'll help with the planning, but I'm not a planner. So Michelle and her team do all the planning. They're exceptionally good at being organized and direct and understanding that. I generally don't do that. I'm really good at hopping on stage and getting people's attention and having fun and creating a cool environment. Michelle, I don't think is really psyched by that. So like there's a very clear divide in what we do. And we've really figured out, look, you're great at this. You should do this. I'm pretty good at this. I'm gonna keep doing this. That was important for us to figure out like the pieces, how they kind of line up.
Yeah.
So we divided our business that way too, of the things that I tackle and the things that she tackles. I've just tried to pursue things that I'm great at and that bring me joy, and then figure out how to not do the things that I don't want to do. Easier said than done, but I'm still searching for more ways to be able to get support to do things that I want to direct all my attention on a couple and that wedding day and figure out how do you just, same thing with you guys. How do you continue to excel at something and continue to evolve it and make it great for them? Because if you're bogged down by everything else, you don't really get a chance to think about that creative stuff. You're actually just too busy in the work and you're not getting to do the creative stuff. Moments for me was kind of your original question of like what it was.
Yeah.
A mentor was, I've always had mentors in my life. I feel like really lucky that I've had that. The model of older person helping me figure stuff out has always been something that's been modeled to me. It's always something that I've done for other people because I experienced firsthand the importance of it. My recommendation to anyone new who's getting started, find a mentor. You have to ask them. They're probably not going to go up to you and say, look, friend, would you like some guidance? I'd like to help you out. Nobody really does that. A mentor has helped me stay on track, stay focused. I can bounce ideas off of them. Someone who's just further along and understands kind of the path that I'm on. Everyone should have that, and have someone that you can have very open dialogue with about how things are going, because otherwise it's just in your own brain. That's a bad place for all that information to live, because it's only you thinking about it and just bouncing around your head, and you're like, I made zero progress on this, but I thought about it for the past 6 days and I haven't slept. A lot of times a single conversation with someone who's outside of it is enough to help you get clarity on it and remove yourself from the problem. And so anyway, I've had mentors. A mentor encouraged me to get full-time into this. That was really key for me. That same mentor encouraged me to buy that chapel.
Okay.
That was a good thing. He's also on the board of directors for the charity that we have. So
Okay.
he's played a pretty fundamental role in my life.
Oh, wow. When did you do officiating full time?
2020
Okay.
basically was right around COVID.
You're like, all right, I'm
We
going full in.
well, before and this will make sense for you guys too. With before we had Quinn, our daughter who's now 5, we were working full time and doing full time wedding work. It was 2 full time jobs for both of us. There's something about not having kids that you actually just enjoy added income. There's something great about that where you're like, man, I'm working full time. This is great. We got this full time wedding thing. Well, this is all good. You have a kid, and all of a sudden that stuff changes. You kind of care a lot less about working all the time, and you say, okay, now I want to redesign this job so I can actually maximize my time at home. You have kids, you've seen this, they grow so fast that you're trying to figure out, how do I do that? How do I create work that allows me to do stuff like this, but also be there for Quinn after school, drop her off at school, spend as much time as humanly possible with her. That's just been super important. Sorry, bring me back to your original question. Bring me
Yeah.
back
When did you
to that.
start doing
When I started, okay.
officiating?
So during COVID, it hit a point where Quinn was getting to an age where I just said, look, I'm done doing this. I'm done doing both jobs. We don't need to. I don't want to. And I'm very certain around the time I had that conversation with a friend who said, dude, get rid of this job, focus solely on weddings. It was also kind of around the time we took over the chapel. And I knew once we took that over, there was a 0% chance I'd be able to do that full-time work and the chapel and Maeck weddings. It just wasn't going to work. And that, again, you don't know what you don't know. We bought the chapel. I knew nothing about what I was getting myself into, locking myself into a 5-year lease when like everybody on the planet was trying to get out of leases because they had no foot traffic. There's a lot of stuff going on there. And you know, with the charity, we were working with lawyers for years. I mean, the interesting part about setting up a charity is it's actually quite expensive to do. And so we also invested a significant amount of money into starting a charity because I knew when I look at the trajectory of my life, where I want to be doing in 10 years, 20, 30, 40 years from now, it's involved in that charity. And so spending the money now while we're thankfully able to do that, I want to set everything up so that it's work that I can do for the rest of my life and not feel like, I'm going to retire at 50. I'm actually not sure I will retire. And I don't think I will. I think, you know, at this moment in my life, I'm trying to create work that I can do forever. And I can tell you officiating weddings is not very physically demanding, so I'm not really at risk at any workplace hazard injuries.
Lucky you.
It's pretty safe work. You on the other hand, it's not the case, but you know, I guess unless I trip and like sprain my ankle or something, it probably could happen. But
we actually had an officiant here who had a broken leg for a whole wedding season, and he still hopped around and with his
good for him.
Yeah.
I love that commitment. What did he wear? Did he wear shorts? Do you have a suit that went over them?
I don't remember actually. I don't remember.
It was summer, and I did see the cast.
Yeah, we saw the cast.
I don't actually remember. We'll have to go back.
He ended up like having.
That's a good question, actually.
He had to like sit down.
Curious.
He had to sit down.
Oh, during the ceremony.
Yeah. He brought like a little stool, and he would just like kind of lean on the stool with his leg.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
So, anyways,
good for him. I love that.
So, anyways, now you know.
Yeah. Even if I break a leg, no problem. I'm still good.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I guess if you lose your voice, that would be like the only thing that would really, you know.
I've had nightmares about that too. Like I take good care of, which sounds so dumb, right? But you kind of have to. You got to be healthy. You got to take care of yourself that way because you need to be reliable for couples. Couples ask, okay, when we hire you, what's your plan B? And I tell couples, look, I have a plan B, but truthfully, I've never used it because when you hire me, it's tough to predict sickness and family stuff. Like I had a wedding December 31st, 7 p.m. Michelle went into labor 5 hours later. Like we're committed. We're doing this thing. You know, there's family stuff that comes up, and my family also understands that when you say yes to a couple, you're there. That's why you've hired me. You've chosen me specifically. They've chosen you guys specifically.
Yeah.
They're not looking for your replacement. And so that's part of the deal. And so anyway, you got to take care of yourself, take care of my voice, take care of myself physically so I'm not sick. Your voice is kind of important.
Yeah. On that note, I was wondering, is there any chance that down the line you might train somebody that is going to be your style and kind of your energy and can help you officiate so that you can expand in that sense?
Yeah, I've considered having a team quite a bit. And we hired a consultant not long ago. I had a conversation with him about it. Again, guys, I feel super lucky in the place that we're at. I don't take anything for granted. Like you guys, I work nonstop because I don't assume that any success that I have today is indicative of the future. I'm working very hard to assure that things continue along a path that I'm happy with. And so when I talked to him about the idea of having a team, because I get all these leads that I'm not available for, I said, man, that's a problem. I've got lots of couples reaching out, which is the hardest thing to do, by the way. Like when you're getting started in a business or you work in weddings, getting the lead is kind of the hard part. I'm getting them, but I'm not available. What do I do with these things? One, from a business standpoint, you want to be able to do something, but two, to be able to serve couples, you want to be able to do something. I want to refer them to someone who, you know, they've done their homework to figure out Jeff's our dude, he's not available, and now I've got to figure out, well, who's going to line up with what they're looking for. And you've seen me in action. I'm like, you know, you kind of walk the line of it's fun and humorous, but recognizing the seriousness of marriage at the same time. I think both can exist at the same time. I don't really know many people that do that.
Yeah.
His recommendation to me, based on my conversation, was he said, dude, I don't think you want to hire a team. I don't think that's the direction you want to go. I'm thankful for that advice. He was very specific about a few things that made a lot of sense to me, primarily that it would take me out of the spot of being up there and I'd have to spend more time managing people. And he said, I'm not sure you're going to love managing someone's schedule as much as you're going to love being up there. And I get asked very often, partially from like, I posted a YouTube video that's like pretty awful quality, to be honest, maybe 2 years ago or something. And it's basically just how to write a ceremony, how to write and perform a ceremony. And I put it up there because friends of mine, actually, you're going to come and meet them. Taylor Jackson, I was talking to him about some videos. I said, dude, like, I want to create a video. He's like, man, just make it. Who cares? Don't worry about the quality. Just do it. Again, the idea of don't stall, just do it.
Yeah.
So I create this video, put it up there. It's got, I don't know, maybe 150,000 views or something. But I get messages on Instagram and emails all the time about it from people saying, love your style. I want to be able to do this. And they all want the same thing. They want the script. Now, in my video, I purposely block out the script. The reason is, and I tell this to every new officiant that I appoint, that I train, that I talk to, it's not the script. That's not what it is. It's how can you make somebody feel on the biggest day of their life? It's not the words. The words play a role. They're important, but they're not the most important piece of this. And people get confused. It'd be the equivalent, I'd imagine, of someone saying, I need the newest camera. Dude, you don't need the newest camera. The camera you've got is perfectly fine. You need to figure out what's your style and then lean into that thing and become exceptionally good at your style. Kind of put on the blinders. Who cares what the other person's doing? I want to be really good at this, and I want to serve this very small segment of the market that's looking for exactly this. Everybody else that's looking for just a dude to say some words, they already know I'm not their guy. And I've spent a lot of time purposely figuring out how to like narrow in on the market that I'm trying to serve best. And so when it comes to training people, part of it is personality, and it's really just leaning into, this is who I am. I'm going to be me up there. And I recommend the same thing for new people getting started. Be comfortable with yourself up there, find out what your style is, and then just go really hard into that. You're not everybody's officiant in the same way you're not everyone's photographer and videographer. And you actually don't want to be, because they're not going to be happy with the product. Like I tell people, I'm like, look, you're not going to be happy with the product I produce if you're looking for something really formal and conservative. You're not going to be happy. And I want to make sure you get lined up with the person who does that. And that's great that they offer it. It's just not me.
Same as you. When we first started, we wanted to do something that was a little bit different, faster videos, a little bit more fun on the day. And at first, it was really hard when we first started, and people didn't really understand our brand or what we were going for. And we started questioning, maybe we should try to be a little bit more like everyone else, because they're obviously successful and they do this business. And like, how come we're not finding that success? So we always teetered on, do we tone it down a little bit? Do we start becoming a little bit more vanilla so that people want us as much as they want other people? But I'm glad that we stuck with what we wanted to do. And this was like pre-COVID time. It's so different now. You said you started officiating, what, like 2015 or something? Yeah. We in Ottawa don't see that kind of style ever at any of our weddings.
That's why you're here, because it was just so refreshing. No, I mean this with like my full heart, that it was so refreshing, and you were so good. Honestly, I think back and I'm like, anyways, I'm a lot sometimes. What I loved is that you made it so fun. Like, it was still very heartfelt. It was still very much about the couple. I know, talking to the couple, that they felt like they were very much in a world with just you talking. For them to be able to really forget everything else that was happening and just fully be present in the moment, that takes a certain amount of skill. What you do is magical, and I love that you've really sort of pushed yourself to do it in a certain way that makes you light up as well, because I think that's exactly what we do is we want to make it as fun. We want to make it as much of our personality as we can put into it, so that this way we come out feeling like, oh wow, that was like incredible. Like that is the feeling that we want to have.
And you have to be polarizing. Like you said, not everyone's going to like you, but the ones that do like you are going to love you.
They love you. They love you. That's it. Like, maybe you were actually just ahead of the trends when you first started doing what you're doing, and it took a little bit for everyone to catch up to what you were doing. What year was that? Maybe 2016. A mentor, like kind of a guy I just asked. He owned a bunch of car dealerships, successful dude in maybe his 50s at the time. A guy I really respected. And I just said, hey man, look, I don't know you super well, but you've clearly had success. I'd love to take you out one night. We went out to dinner. From that conversation, the one thing that he recommended to me is a book that I've recommended probably more than any other book. It's a book called Blue Ocean Strategy. And it's basically this idea that everybody competes in this red ocean. They're all competing on price, competing on the same thing, the same type of video. And you want to create a blue ocean which exists independently from the red ocean. That way you're no longer compared to everybody competing here. You're actually on your own island. And so they give these really great examples of businesses that have done this and been successful. Similar to what you guys have done, you had the choice. You're at a crossroads. Okay, it's not catching on. Should we kind of enter into that red pool and try and compete with everyone? That's a hard place to compete. In fact, it's extremely difficult. Or we could just kind of keep pushing forward with what we're doing here and create this unique, cool stuff, charge a price that we feel is great and we're happy with, and produce this exceptional product. people can't compare you to that Red Bull. Like you're totally different at that point, and that's like your advantage, and like really leaning into that side of things. And I'm so happy for you guys that you've done that. I think that's partly why you've had so much success and why you're so good at what you do. You went against what everyone else tries to do. If you don't immediately get traction, the reaction is like, okay, maybe we should just do what everyone else does. Like let's just copy that and just put it out. But as creatives, you guys are so talented and so skilled that
Oh,
you produce these exceptional things that I wouldn't even want to compare with what other people are putting out. And you've done a good job of separating the two. You're not competing here. You're in your own spot. Grey Loft is its own place, and that's really cool. You guys done that well.
oh, thank you. That's very kind. Do we have some that have kind of been more vanilla than others? Yes. And that's one of the things we've had to sort of be very careful about as well, is just when we meet with couples is saying like, we want to have fun. And I'm sure when you meet with couples too, it's the same thing. Like, I want to have
Yeah.
fun with you. I want to have a good time. I'm going to be there to like entertain. We kind of do the same thing. Like we're also talking to the entire family and chatting with the couple and all of their friends and family. Like that level of fun comes through. Like we're not these weirdos that stand in the corner, and we're a part of it. And you have that same vibe. And I think that's super cool. So
Well,
yeah.
you know what you've done, and I noticed it the day of too. I do the same thing. One, it's partly I think it's just our personalities. We just do this. When you engage with people, you laugh and you have fun with them. Like I do that all the time with guests. I work with a million photographers a year, and sometimes I wonder, is this the right spot for you? Like, do you enjoy people? Are you having fun doing this? As someone who's like observing, if I'm in one of the guests watching you work and I don't ever see you laugh or smile, I'm thinking, I look miserable. Like, I don't know if they like doing this job. But you guys are laughing with guests, having some fun, telling some jokes. Like that keeps things super light. And on as you know, on like one of the biggest days of someone's life, the most expensive party they're ever going to throw, if you can do anything to ease some of the pressure and take some of the tension away and take some of that off of the couple and the guests, man, you've just enhanced that day 1,000%, because now everyone just feels so much more comfortable and more relaxed. And you guys did that so well, even in the videos that you post, like the behind the scenes stuff. It's just like you guys laughing and stuff with guests. Like, that stuff's so key, and people don't forget that. Guests
Yeah.
for sure don't.
What we know about officiants here in our market is that they send you a script ahead of time and they say, choose from these paragraphs and here's what I'm going to say on the wedding day.
That's a great question, because it is a point of differentiation, and it's a conversation I have with every couple on every call. You know, a lot of the stuff that I do is not to be different. I don't just choose to do things because it's, hey, this is a different way to do it. This is unique. This is whatever. I've just figured out this works for me. This works for the product I'm trying to deliver. This is the process I want to take people through. And it just so happens to be kind of the opposite of what everyone else does. And that's a fun thing. So part of that is when I chat with couples and tell them, you know, they want to know, what are you going to say during the ceremony? That's a fair question. They see photos that I post on Instagram of couples laughing, having fun. Like, dude, what are you doing? A stand-up routine? Like, what's so funny about your ceremonies? Like, what's the deal here? And it's not that I'm telling jokes or doing anything like that. I just tell stories, but I do it in a way that sounds a little bit more like old high school buddy Jeff is retelling this story. Like, I was there, I saw it. I want to tell you about it. And that has a way of really drawing people into a story versus saying, let me give you a chronological retelling of when you guys met, what you did, you proposed here. That stuff's all contextually important. It's not really like captivating, like for the guests. I mean, they're already there. They know that stuff about you. I want the more nuanced stories that if I told someone, they'd be like, oh, this is exactly you guys. Like, that's fully your relationship. That's the type of story. And the way that I've found to get that is not by asking a couple in a setting like this together, is to ask it separately, because they're going to remember stuff the other person won't remember. They're going to tell it in their own words. They're going to remember details. They might not remember something altogether. And so I ask them questions separately, have them fill in some things for me. And then when they send it to me, one, I have a great laugh reading it, because you'll be shocked at what people will tell you, where I'm like, man, I can't, like, this is a very funny story. I can't share this, but super funny. So I end up with lots of that content that I've got to strip through.
You should post more of this content. I think that would be really hilarious. Sorry, as
There's-
a side note here.
And look, I tell people this all the time, that when I'm chatting with couples, I always lead it with like, look, I'm generalizing. I'm not. It's always guys. It's always guys that tell me stuff. I'm like, dude, you should never tell anyone that story. Like, how do you not know that's not a story to tell someone? Like, and it's super funny. But then it's like, I jump on the call with them later on, and I'm like, man, I know so much about you. You have no idea. Then I take those stories, and I can tell pretty quickly what's important to them based on how they're telling a story, who's in the story, what the details are, what they think is funny. Their writing style tells me a ton about their relationship and what they perceive as funny. And then I start writing the ceremony. But the key to this whole process is I don't share that script with them ever. I found through experience, when I first started, I would share a ceremony script with couples, and they had an extremely difficult time understanding my written word to presented. Those are two very different things. It's like getting a movie script and reading it versus watching an actor perform it. Like, those are way different things.
Mhm.
And so I found the exercise to actually not be very helpful for couples to read it, but then the way that I'm talking to you right now is how I'm going to deliver it. And delivery is so important to what I do. And I spent a lot of time working on it. So I just stopped. I just like, here's the deal. I'm not going to share it with you. One, because I know you're going to obsess over it and read it 1,000 times before the day, and you're not going to pay attention the day of because you already know what's coming. But two, it really forced couples to be very present with me when they got married.
Hmm.
And I loved that. Like I could feel the couple being way more involved in it. One, because they don't know what I'm going to say. Two, they have no idea what their partner told me. And so when I'd lead in with the story, like, hey, do you remember the time you guys did blank? And the one partner's like, oh, frick, what did he tell him? And that's really funny too. It leads to these moments of like, they're trying to like rattle their brain of like, what story is this? And then it leads to like those very funny moments when you tell the story and they're like, I can't believe I forgot, like that type of moment.
Or, oh my gosh,
Or, oh my,
you said
but
what?
again, yeah, I've always got to be very careful with what I share because I recognize too, like, look, you've probably got coworkers, family, grandparents. We got to be pretty careful what we share. I'm not going to
Mhm.
roast anybody. I want to have some fun, but we're going to keep it pretty good. And so that was a really important piece of what I do. Not share the ceremony with couples, surprise them with it the day of. I found they loved that. Like they absolutely loved that experience. But it took a lot of time for me to build credibility and trust for me to say that to a couple. And so I tell couples, look, if your officiant says, I'm not going to share the ceremony script with you, and you look them up online, you can't find anything, you talk to your vendors, they've never heard of you. Look, I don't know, man, maybe that's a red flag. Maybe they're crazy. Who knows what they're going to say? I'm like,
Yeah.
that might be risky. I intentionally spent a ton of time building up credibility from vendors, venues, couples to be able to tell that to someone and have them trust that it's going to be good. And they're like, okay, dude, we trust you. We know it's going to be good because there's a lot of trust that's involved in that type of relationship. I also found with couples, like the approach, Luke, that you mentioned is, which is what every other officiant not named Jeff does. They basically give the options to the couple and say, you choose one of these 5 intros, you choose one of these 5 stories, one of these 5 ring exchanges. And I always thought, that's fine if that's what someone wants to do. That's no problem. But I found it strange to ask the couple to do it. Like I'm the guy who does this all the time, so I actually have a really good idea of what's going to land, what's going to work, what flow works well. Why am I asking you to do it? Isn't that really the whole reason you've hired me to do it? Because I'm the guy. I mean, you don't show up with your camera and ask the groom like, "Hey, man, how do you want me to take this photo?" You hopefully know how to do that. And so I've kind of reversed that approach and said, I don't want you to choose what's going to go in there. I'm going to choose for you. We're going to make it awesome. It's going to be a ton of fun, I promise. And if there's meaningful pieces that you want to include, let's include that. But let's not just include 3 readings because you went to a wedding last summer for cousin Ricky and they had 3 and you're like, oh, I should have 3 readings. That doesn't seem meaningful. And the number of times when I would share ceremonies with couples, I'd say, guys, you want any readings? Like, yeah, we want to have 2 readings. Awesome, guys. Which ones do you want? I don't know, Jeff, you choose. Well, I don't know. Is that meaningful? Like, that seems a little bit strange. What do you want me to choose? Like, should I just choose a book off my shelf? I want anything that's injected into the ceremony to be extremely meaningful. I want it to be the poem that your dad read you on a camping trip. Like, I want it to be a story your mom used to tell you laying in bed. Like, man, that's the stuff that we're going to read and people are going to be so drawn to and emotionally invested in, not just some random reading on marriage that you chose on the internet.
We've been to so many ceremonies, right? As you know, and we almost know word for word what people are going to say because they say it the exact same way. And I'm not saying that you can't, right? I'm sure there's things that you
For sure.
say very
Yep.
much the same at each one because you know it hits. But from my perspective, what was refreshing for you is that, like you said before, the delivery was there in a way that felt like it's old buddy Jeff that we used to hang out with in high school versus like, hello, I am the officiant and I am going to officiate them today. Like that's kind of, sorry, I'm doing like a very bad impression. But
what got me was the level of detail that you would insert into a story. Just the example of the last one we did together when you were like, when he was proposing, he was just sweating and you don't know what was he sweating because of the lights or something he ate or, and those are little questions that keep the crowd engaged and keep people guessing, oh, what is he going to say next? I have to, if I don't listen, I might miss something crucial. And that's really what I got from the way that you
That's
delivered.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So anyways, so to me, like I love that. I was laughing. I didn't know their story to that extent. And so I was even like, I'm going around like just like everyone's laughing. I'm just like trying to take as many pictures as I can.
And then we're like content overload.
And the delivery is something that's like really overlooked in what we do. I mean, I think a lot of, again, people can do whatever they like. I'm don't throw shade at anyone that's doing work the way they do it. That's awesome. For my style, which is very performative, to me, it's important. Like you probably, I mean, from the video, I move around a little bit. Like I'm moving. I'm kind of like, I'll reach out and grab Mike's arm and be like, did you remember this? Like, and talk to him because it's really engaging. We're trying to have a conversation, the 3 of us. There just so happens to be 200 people watching. And like, they're also kind of like leaning in a little bit to kind of get the story. And There are cues and ways to do that in a way that are important, but show people that you really care. I mean, at the end of every ceremony, I get the same comments. When people have a good laugh, they like to comment on that. And they just wonder, they're like, how the heck do we not know you? Like, you just know these guys so well. Like, did you grow up with them? Why don't we know who you are? You don't know me. And we met online. Like, they found me online, and or actually Erica had referred me, and that's a common experience where people just assume we must be like old friends, but they're just confused why they wouldn't know who I am if I know them that well. And for me, that feels like, look, we hit the mark. Like, I really want people to feel like your closest friend told this story, not some strange dude you met on the internet.
Because that's what you are, right? This strange dude.
I guess so. I guess so. Yeah.
That's what we all are, right? As wedding vendors, we're just strange, random people you find on the internet.
That's it. That's it.
That's gonna be our new slogan. Okay, I want to know though, has there been anything that you found that challenged you? I know we kind of shared where we were like, okay, do we kind of go the vanilla route because people aren't resonating? Like in our case, it was specifically a planner telling me, she's like, do you think you could make your videos a little like slower and more romantic?
Oh my
We
gosh.
don't really want my couples are really looking for that. So I would love to know, has there been, some pivots or challenges that you face that you can share with us, that you've come across in your journey to get where you are today?
Yeah, I think one of the frustrating things that we run into as creatives, when there's no barrier to entry into the wedding industry, anyone can do weddings at any point. They can get a camera, start filming. They can get, officiating may be the only thing because you actually have to have provincial authority to be able to do it. But then that's it. That's the only regulation. It can create a very saturated market, which makes it extremely difficult for couples to sift through anything and to understand, who am I hiring? Like, who are the people that are great? How do I know? That's a complicated thing. What's frustrated me sometimes as I've spent more time building the brand, because I really do want people to go on our website, check me out on Instagram, and see the continuity between the two. Just like, kind of, this outrageous dude, this is pretty funny. They would check out some of the videos, like, oh yeah, confirmed, he is. That's all good stuff. Those are like some checkpoints that I want them to hit before they reach out to me. They're almost hurdles, because I need you to watch some of the stuff before you reach out, so you're not surprised. But
I can imagine that would be a very surprising thing if they were just like, we heard you're good, let's meet, and you're like, but
yeah,
Jeff,
yeah, exactly.
Sorry,
And
I had to throw it in somewhere.
man, I can't not hear that. I can't not hear it when I say my own name. What was frustrating, and I ran into it a number of times, I run into it still today, is that we work in a creative industry, but up and coming creatives copy our work. They lift our copy off our website. They redo photo shoots that we did. They try to take content that we've done and repurpose it. I find that to be one of the most frustrating things to navigate, especially since you're navigating it basically solo, and trying to figure out, well, what's the right course of action here? Some of these people are in local markets, and some of these people are in markets outside of the province or in the US. And it's strange and frustrating and sometimes even hurtful to see words that I've written copied verbatim on someone else's website. What are we doing here? Why would you copy text that I've written? Again, so it comes back to the script. When people think it's the script for the ceremony, it's not the script for the ceremony. Go on the internet, download whatever you want, but can you deliver it exceptionally well? Can you present it in a way that people show or feel like you actually care about these guys? Well, one of my goals when I started doing this was to figure out, how can an officiant offer an exceptional service and then get a price point that aligns with that. Officiating is not historically a thing that people get paid very well to do. And for me to be able to do this full time, I needed to be able to charge a rate that would allow me to do that. Now, it's not up to the person paying to determine or to have to finance that, but for me to be able to be as creative as I am and to focus as much as I am and to be great, I need to be able to charge a specific rate to be able to do that. So if they want the stuff provided to them, it's this rate. So anyway, the challenging part was figuring out, how do you tell that story so people understand when they hire you, sure, I'm more, but it comes with this experience that I like to tell people. I'm like, hey, look, I feel fully confident that if you talk to your DJ, hair, makeup, photo, video, anybody about my style, they're hopefully, fingers crossed, they're hopefully gonna have some good stuff to say. So I feel pretty confident saying that. So that's why I charge the rate that I do, because you're gonna get all my attention that day. I've really changed the model. I don't know if you guys are ever in this, it's a little bit tricky for what you do, but I've gotten out of the volume-based business, and now I do more, I'm trying to do just one ceremony per day. In the beginning stages, when you start, you say yes to everybody. Of course, I'll do that wedding that I'm definitely not the right fit for, but you just need to do, to do them.
You need to keep the lights on, right?
One, to keep the lights on, and two, to get more experience. And so you just say yes. Now I say a lot more no's. As I market in a specific way, it's basically me saying no to a lot of couples, not because I don't want to work with them, but because I want them to be truly happy on the day of. And so also shifting the model to, how can I just do one wedding on a Saturday and not feel like I got to sprint to 3 weddings? Because by the time, if you're doing 2 on Friday, 3 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday, I can tell you by that last one on Sunday, you are zapped. Same way the triple header for you guys, maybe even just a double header. You want to be able to give your absolute best, maximum attention, best possible experience. And I figured that I actually can't deliver that on Sunday at 6 p.m. when I've just done 6 ceremonies, because each ceremony demands a lot of energy from me. And I don't think anyone should care that I've had 6 weddings previous to this. That's not their problem. That's a Jeff problem. And I need to figure out, forget everything we just did the past 3 days. This is the only thing that matters right now. You need to deliver that exceptional experience. And it got hard to do.
It takes a toll,
I'm,
right?
I'm
Like,
not getting younger, guys. I'm not getting
yeah.
younger. Maybe in post you can like figure out how to get rid of some of the gray, but it's coming in hard. Like it's coming fast, guys.
And that's very much an education piece that you have to tell your clients. We just recently told a client of ours that wanted to hire us for video that they hired a specific other photographer, and we told them it's not going to be a good fit. Like we could have just said yes and just tried our best to do, but we told them it won't be our best work. We just had to say no.
Every wedding that you go to, you've got a new team of people. It's not like showing up to work at whatever, some retail location where it's like, I already know the 4 coworkers that I have. You're working with a new set of team every weekend, and you've got to figure out super quick how to mesh, how to figure out how to produce the best possible product for the couple. Everyone's hopefully on the same page with that. I find officiants get a bit of a bad rap because, again, I'm saying this is in general, this is not the rule. I'm trying to think of the nice way to put it. There's some things that officiants should do, they should know to do, but they don't do because there's no training for it. Like I'd imagine if the officiant is, retired, they don't really care about the final images. They're like, look, I'm not here for final photos, and that's okay. Like I understand their position on that, but when I'm doing stuff, I'm extremely focused on. We're trying to create something great. I need to figure out how to make the photographer's job better, the videographer's job. I've got an idea of stuff I'm trying to create. I'm trying to create moments for you guys to capture of them laughing, having fun. Not only is that good for them, good for you to capture, but it's also good for me to be able to showcase what I do. But I find officiants when they show up, like for me, I mean, at this point, thankfully, I've worked with a lot of people around here that kind of know me. You did it to a very small extent. So when you talked about it, about like saying, hey, Jeff, I need you to do whatever, there are photographers that will not introduce themselves, come up to you and say, hey, dude, look, first kiss, make sure you're out of the way. Anything else I need to know? No, okay, cool. Catch you later. Hey, dude, like, can I get like a hello? Can I get a, hey, we're here to do this thing together. Like, can you treat me like a human? There's a lot of that, which is very frustrating, I find sometimes. And I'm really trying to push everyone into a direction, like officiants specifically, to say, look, you should be great. There's no reason for you not to be. You should obsess over the details and obsess over creating something really cool for the couple. So then photographers don't come up to us and say, hey, dude, can you not suck today? Because that's like their expectation or that's their experience of it. So it's unfortunate, but like I think everyone's trying to like push a certain direction, and that's a good thing. Really elevate what couples should expect, and people like you are doing that in the photo video space of saying, look, this is what we produce, and we're going to say no to weddings that we can't produce our optimal best content. What a position, by the way, for you guys to be in a spot where you can say no. Thank goodness that's the case. Thankfully we're lucky that we can make decisions like that. We don't need to say, I'll freaking do anything, whatever it is. Like I'll just do it. That you don't need to do it.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking in my head as you're talking, I'm like, I've been making a lot of content about officiants. And I don't, to me, I don't realize it as like a dig. It's more of like an education piece. But, like the one recently, don't start your kiss until the officiant's out of the way, right? Like, I know it sounds like a very simple thing, but sometimes couples like that, you can tell the officiant is trying to not suck today and they're trying to get out of the way. And so the couple's so excited to go for that first kiss and they're already kissing and the guy's head's still popping out of it or the girl's head's still there, right? So in that case, like that's kind of, again, that education piece that people need to know, like, okay, just if they are going to move, just kind of just take a second, wait. Or like in your case, what you do to make that very, very easy is you literally like walked completely off the stage before you even announced it, right? Like announced for them to go for that kiss. And so to me, it's just like, these are just like these little things, like you said, and the fact that you care about that final product, you care about the photo and video team so that they have a good angle and things like that. Like that just goes to show that there's more to it than just you getting up there and giving your little spiel and like, away you go, right? It's like you care about the full package.
I was even going to comment on even the way you dress. I know it's like a big point that you like to make. You get new suits. That's the kind of social media stuff that I've been seeing lately. And I think that makes a huge difference too. There's a ton of photos with you in it, right? During the whole ceremony. So that speaks to the professionalism and just the image that you're trying to create for yourself.
I was kind of lucky that like when I was a prettier dude, I had my photo taken all the time. So like I kind of understand a little bit the importance of certain things and like how to even like how to angle and how to do certain things for photos. And I'm not doing it for my own sake. I'm doing it because I'm trying to produce the best image to deliver to a couple. I'm thinking about that stuff in the ceremony. I don't think most people are really thinking about that. Part of it is if you don't charge enough, you don't get to spend enough time focusing on the delivery. So a lot of them are up there saying, okay, I'm doing 10 ceremonies this year, which is awesome, by the way, which is great. But the content isn't fresh. The delivery is not fresh. They're not in the routine of it. They maybe didn't do a ceremony for 3 months. It's really hard when you're not in a routine to get back into it. But if they charged a rate that was higher, I can guarantee you they'd be like, man, I'd better be exceptional. I'd better practice this thing 1,000 times. I better know exactly what to do. And so the two kind of go hand in hand. Like you charge a rate, you put some pressure on yourself to over deliver on that, and that's part of the deal. And
I
so
love that.
the suits thing too, like I kind of obsess on, I love suits. I used to model suits. I like them. They're cool. There's a local place, actually there's one in your area too called Service here, and we're working together at getting me a whole bunch of custom suits. And I tell every couple, including the people that we appoint, I'm like, I can tell you there's nothing like the feeling of feeling like you dressed like a rock star. Like you feel incredible.
Yeah.
And when your job is to deliver, the last thing I want to be thinking about is, do I look okay? Like, like, it's just a thought that's kind of in your head. And when you know the couple's invested a significant amount of money into photographers who are going to do an incredible job, I would prefer to look as good as possible, as good as I can. And thankfully, like with your editing skills, Luke, you can actually make me look like pretty half decent. So like that's like important stuff too. But that's part of like why I'm invested in the look, in the suits, and that type of thing.
I love that. It's so cool. And it speaks to your brand too, right? I feel like that kind of goes hand in hand with your brand. And so it kind of all like comes full circle. And like now that Luke mentioned it, like you are making content about all of these little things. And even though it's silly and it's very uniquely you and like speaks to your, quirkiness and your personality, it all kind of like goes hand in hand. Like, yeah, I care about my suit. Yeah, I care about showing people the real me. And I think that is something that I hope more people will do, because that is what people hire. I know for us, they hire us because they like us as people,
Yeah,
not because
definitely.
like, they got through the door. They obviously like our work. Like we don't need to talk about our work anymore, Now they need to know who we are as people so that they can hopefully show up and be their truest selves, right? Like that is our ultimate goal on a wedding day. And I'm sure it is with you, that they can just be themselves on the day. They don't have to pretend to be anything that they're not. It's a very unique position to be in.
I've gotten in the habit over the past few years of actually giving, which seems counterintuitive, but there's purpose and intent behind everything I do, much the same way you do. So when I don't do rehearsals, I haven't done them for years personally. So some venues will want the couple to do a rehearsal. I should get that clear. I'm not saying people don't do rehearsals. I'm just saying if you're going to do one, I'm just not going, because I don't think the idea of practicing this thing is fully necessary. If you've got someone there who's going to lead the day that you trust. If the officiant has no idea what they're doing, you should probably do a rehearsal. Like I would recommend it. They should be there. They should check out the space. I don't need to really check out a space anymore. I know how these things work, but I also don't want people obsessing over details that I don't think are very important. And I found when you do a rehearsal, sometimes it puts these thoughts in people's heads where they're walking down the aisle thinking, well, what did Jeff say? Like, where am I supposed to stand? When am I doing that thing? I don't want you thinking about any of that stuff. I want you to trust Jeff's going to lead you through that. You're going to know exactly what to do at what point. Don't think about it. So I'm actually not communicating those details to the couple. It frees them up to just be more like, look, I'm here. That's all I need you to do. I just need you to be here. I'll do the rest. And so rehearsals can be a tricky thing too. I mean, you've got your wedding parties, their partners, parents, you're trying to coordinate a million people's schedules. They're expensive. There's a lot that goes into it that I feel like, hey, that week leading up to your wedding's probably stressful enough. Do you really need another event before the event? Probably not. Why don't you just hang out with your people, have a laugh, like hang out and de-stress and just feel like, cool, I'm feeling great going into this day. That's the power of hiring people like you, hiring people who know what they're doing. You don't need to stress about it. You just trust them and let them do their thing.
Yeah. I don't know how I feel about rehearsals. I mean, you're obviously team no. I think for us, it's just because we've seen like the worst where you can clearly tell they've not rehearsed, right? And you're talking, I'm talking like groomsmen that are walking like literally like soldiers right behind each other. What that means is that like I can't get a clear photo or a clear shot of each person because they're literally like ants marching down the aisle together, right? Like, so to me, had a rehearsal happened, they would have had times where that one person could be in the aisle and they wouldn't be like backed up to each other, right? Like just like to me, it's those little details that matter because I can't get a good final image out of that, right?
And if they hire a good coordinator or planner, they would have someone to cue them. The questions, so a couple quick notes on rehearsals. When I was doing them, one, I found people didn't take them seriously. So it became, I don't want to say a giant waste of time. It kind of did. Everyone would show up late. Nobody really cared. Everyone was talking. And I get it. Like, it's fun. It's exciting. They haven't seen each other in a while. So like there's that aspect. I'm like, guys, this should take us 20 minutes. This is taking an hour. What are we doing? And the questions are always the same. Well, how do I walk in? Like, I don't know, you've been walking for 30 years. Just do that. Just
Yeah,
do the
just
walking thing. Like, and the other thing I tell people and remind them is if I'm up at the front, if I'm up there hanging out with the groom, his groom's gonna walk down. By the time they've hit kind of the halfway mark of the aisle, nobody's looking at them anymore. They're all looking back. So when they get to the front, I don't need them to hit a specific mark. I'm just gonna put them in a specific mark. I'm gonna let them kind of find a natural point, and then I'm gonna grab the best man's shoulder and be like, hey dude, I'm just gonna push you a little bit like this and move you around. And then as the bridesmaids are walking down to the wedding party of the following, it's the same thing. One walks down, they hit the halfway mark. Everyone's already directing their attention to the next person coming down. So I don't need that person to think about what spot they're going to hit. I'll just tell them when I'm up there, hey, just shift a little bit there. That's how I perfect it instead of doing the rehearsal. Like everyone's always focused on the back, not at the front in those moments of a processional. So that's how I get around it anyway, when you're saying like if they're not in the right spot or anything. But again, I'm kind of obsessed on details. So I want to be obsessed on details. I don't want the couple to be obsessed about it.
It's the same as getting the couple to stand in the middle of the arch or that kind of stuff. That because for us as photos, it makes a huge difference if you have to, come at it from the side just to make it look like they're in the middle of the arch or whatever it is. So
a lot of times I got to put my hand on someone's shoulder and push them. And then there's some couples, you just can't help them. I'm like, I've moved you so many times and they just keep either the kind of shifting on their feet or something, and they just kind of move too much forward. Again, I'm not very rigid with my ceremonies. So even if someone's in the wrong spot, like I think at one point, Bethany, you'd even mentioned like, hey, like move them over a little bit. I don't get rattled by that stuff. I actually prefer to you just roll with that stuff and you make it funny, you make a joke. Hey guys, like you're in the middle. What are we doing here? You kind of move people, have them laugh. It's not like this, like, ooh, we got to be weird and stiff about it.
Stop the ceremony. We got to move it.
Yeah. It's just stuff happens and you got to be able to roll with it. Like that's just basically my job is keep it going smoothly.
Yeah, I think that it's so funny because I laugh because that was literally what happened. I was like, hey Jeff, can you make sure they're centered for the first kiss? And you're like, cool, got it. But it was just like, these are little things, right, that we see, that we notice, because at the end of the day, again, we only get one shot. Same with you, right? We only get one shot to do it. We also want to try to make it fun and everything too. So it's nice that you can spin it and be like, okay, guys, come on. Photographer is going to be upset if you're not centered. So let's move kind of thing. I think that's a right way to do it versus it being this awkward, weird thing as well.
That's a really good point. You get one shot, you get one attempt at it. Officiating similar, you get one shot at this thing, which is also why I obsess over practicing and making sure the delivery is great, because you don't get a redo. There's not they don't do a first kiss. You're like, guys, redo right from the top. Let's do the whole thing again. It's like, you get one shot at it. And so again, that's the teamwork thing of us being on the same page. I want to help you create that image. I want to make sure that we're all doing the same thing. Unfortunately, it's not always that easy. Sometimes you get teams that are more like, my shot's most important. I don't care what you do. And you're like, cool, okay, I'll just do my thing. And it's very funny that exists. And I find in certain markets, you see that more than you do in others. There's a bit of a culture in certain places that it is that everyone's competing. And it's also weird to say, if I showed up to that wedding and I felt some competition from you guys, I'd say, guys, look, I didn't bring a camera. I'm not a photographer. We know this, right? It's like people forget that we're all hired to do different things, though. I mean, so why wouldn't we work as a team to do those things that we're hired for? Very strange. And it comes down to you guys are super relational. I'm the same way. So if I don't get that same kind of relationship with someone, I'm not offended by it, but I'm more like, look, I think this would be easier if we could just at least talk, or have some fun. I assume you're hired because you're good, and I want to think I'm okay too. Let's just create something cool. Let's do it, and let's have fun too. My preference is to have fun at work. Those are my best days.
It's actually a good phrase. My preference is to have fun at work. Doesn't mean you have to be a participant, but that's my preference.
That's about yours. I am choosing fun today. Whether or not you're involved in it, it doesn't matter. I'm choosing it.
I get it, because for us, it's it's been chaos getting to that point sometimes, I won't lie to you in the sense of there are so many things going on in my mind, again, that we only get that one chance. I have to speak to so many, I got the DJ that's asking me questions, I got the planner, I've got the couple, I've got my second shooters, I've got Luke, do you got the camera going? You got the audio? We're there's a million things. So to me, and that's why I laugh about it now. And I'm sure even at that wedding, I came up to you afterwards and I was like, I'm so sorry if I was intense, but it's just an intense moment, right? And
you were probably also 6 or 8 hours into your workday at that point. I hadn't even done anything. Do you know what I mean? I show up, I'm fresh, ready to go. You guys are deep into the day at that point. You've worked a lot. So there's also recognizing you're halfway into your workday, maybe only a third of the way. So I can't show up and just be like, cool, no problem. Who cares, guys? Because you're like, I hate this guy. Like, he's just chilled out. He hasn't done any work today. He's just showing up. And so it's
Just
like
popping Red Bulls, you
it's
know?
it's just respecting that. Hey, if you're, if I sense any stress or anything from a photographer, there's a good chance maybe something went wrong in the morning, and they're just still kind of reeling from that or trying to figure out how to make sure the rest doesn't get derailed. So
Yeah.
I get it. You guys have a hard job.
I mean, like champagne exploding all over the groom. In that scenario, like that was how my day started, right? And so yeah, the rest of the day I was a little bit like, okay, we have a million things to capture. And like there never feels like, even though we schedule enough time, it never feels like there's enough. I never get to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm good. I still even second guess if I'm good or not.
And let's be real, that wedding that we're talking about as well was a really stunning, beautiful production wedding that took place. So we all want to make sure we got our A+++ game. We're ready. There's a lot of moving parts going on, a lot more than you probably typically might see at like a lot more people involved. So more coordination to take place. So
and all new people, right? Like it was a new DJ. You were a new officiant to us. There's little details I think that every officiant does. I know when I'm trying to do stuff, I'm always trying to get better, right? I'm always trying to improve. I'm always trying to like make that. And I feel like you do the same thing, right? Like you're always trying to make it like a little bit better, a little bit more fun or different or whatever it is. I think what we see or what we've seen is that people literally don't. Like it's the same. And I feel like to me that it's stale. It's hard to get excited about that portion. And even sometimes our couples, right? Like we had it this year. One of my best friends got married and she's like, I just want my like ceremony to be like 5 minutes or less. And in my mind, I'm like, do you know how much goes into this part? Like everything that we've been thinking about or planning or whatever, it literally all stems from this one part, and you want it to be as quickly as possible. Like it broke my heart a little bit because I really wanted, like I felt like people had this idea that the ceremony isn't a big deal. But to me, when a ceremony is done right and in the way that you did it, like that's super fun. That's entertaining. That's like people are going to remember that. People are going to talk about that ceremony. They're going to walk away being like, that was so amazing. That was so different than we'd ever seen before. Right. And so I think that that's what you've done, and you've done it so beautifully. And I would love for you to come here more often, but I would love to have it where couples essentially can get excited about this part of the ceremony. I feel like it's been twisted. Do you see that in your world? Like where it's what I'm talking about, where it's just like, just get it in and out and like be done with it.
One of the obstacles of starting as well was trying to take a part of the day that's typically not the most exciting, and then educate people on how it can actually be the best part of the day. But it takes a lot of work. And then it took a lot of years for me to showcase that to couples too, because you could say that to someone like, look, I think the ceremony should be the most important part. Like, yeah, whatever. And you get people that would say, look, like I want my ceremony to be as short as humanly possible. And it's actually just because they've been to some ceremonies that weren't very good. Because in the same way we can watch a movie that's 3 hours long and I'm like, this is the best movie I've ever seen in my life. Or I can watch one that's 20 minutes long and be like, this is the best movie I've ever seen. Like the length actually doesn't matter. It's just, is the content good? And so when couples tell me a length of ceremony they're kind of expecting, in my mind, I'm thinking they've actually been to some ceremonies that they didn't like that were probably too long. And I do think there's a sweet spot. I think there's a number, and there's a number I'm trying to hit every time that it's enough time to be captivating, tell a good story, engage people, but also not too long that people are like, dude, when can we get a drink? Like I want to go on to the next thing. There's a sweet spot for sure.
What is it? What is the sweet spot?
He doesn't want to say it.
I think I know. Honestly, for me, it's about 20 minutes. Like, I think 20 minutes is good. Not counting like walking down the aisle and all that kind of stuff and signing.
Yeah. And so for the guys who have done some of the research on it, TED Talks are 18 minutes long. I'm shooting for 18 minutes of Jeff talking. You're going to add some bows, a signing, recessional, processional. You're going to hit probably like, so I also tell couples I'm trying to hit the Michael Jordan mark. I want to be 23 minutes. Like I'm shooting for greatness there. That's the right time frame for a ceremony. It doesn't feel too long.
I was there.
and there are things that'll make it longer, things that make it shorter, but that's roughly what they should expect. And by default, every venue in the province gives you half an hour, but I always tell couples we don't need half an hour. Like it's a little bit too much time. We won't need it.
Yeah.
You touched on a point too about, and so I don't think it's everyone. I don't have the expectation of everyone that they're in the same boat. Like I'm a bit of an obsessive dude on getting better at things. And just finding new ways to do things, or also just leaving things better than when I found them. And so the officiating space, I kind of see that as in a small microcosm, like in my own Jeff's world. How can I make it better just for the couples in my area that I get to serve? And not everyone is that way. And I don't think everyone needs to be that. But for me, my work is kind of constantly evolving and constantly changing. And I'm learning new things all the time because I might feel like, hey, I'm onto something here, but I'm also humble enough to know there's stuff I don't know, and there's stuff I'm going to see, stuff I'm going to learn, and I'm going to rework what I do. There's a few of us that have a Instagram group, and they're officiants all over the US and in Australia, kind of some of the leading people in their space there. And we bounce ideas off each other all the time of stuff that works, stuff that we think is fun and is great and is engaging. That's been really important for me to be able to be extremely transparent about what I'm thinking with people in markets outside of mine. So it also doesn't matter what I tell them, because if they want to use it in theirs, that's great. You can go ahead and do it. It's not someone in my local market saying, "Ooh, good idea, Jeff. I'm going to do exactly that in my ceremonies." And so it's fun to be able to share things with that group. But I would say my learning has accelerated quite a bit by investing time and resources into that. But it's by choice, right? I mean, you talked about, you probably maybe still do the same thing. You're always learning new stuff. You're watching tutorials, watching videos, watching YouTube stuff, like figuring out how to do things differently and better. And I think the people that ultimately are able to do this for the long term are people that are doing that because their work is changing. And there are a number of people whose work stays frozen in time. And when you see their work, I can say, I feel like you started as a photographer in '97 and you just said, I'm just going to mail it in. I'm just going to keep producing this. And that's fine. Like you can do that. There's no problem.
Yeah.
But your work certainly stays, like, represents an era. And I see it today where I'm like, man, that was like 26 years ago, 27 years ago. Like things have changed a little bit for the better, I think. But
I feel like it changes every year. Like, I feel
Yeah.
like our stuff, not like to the point where I could go back in 5 years and look at our stuff and be like, ooh, that was so different then. Like, but I feel like things change, trends change, couples want different things. And also we change as creatives. Like I mean, I get bored of things. I'm sure you do. I can tell you probably do. And
yeah,
Luke definitely gets bored of things. Like, we don't want to do things the exact same way every time.
We're huge on educating our clients on why we charge so much for our service. And like you've alluded to a few times, and it's really because we care so much and we put a lot of ourselves in every wedding that we do. The amount of care that we put, because maybe that level is not the same at every single vendor. So it's hard for them to imagine, oh, if I hire this one or this one, sometimes like, oh, they're $1,000 cheaper and the photos kind of look the same. But we always say we sell the experience of not only from when you book us till the end of your wedding, but on the wedding day itself, the experience of being with us is vastly different than it would be with another photographer or videographer on the day.
It should feel like you want to party with us because we have just been like so a part of your day. Like, we're not the people that stand in the corner. We're just not. And we're very vocal about that. Like, we're very much involved. You know, like, we're respectful. We get lots of candid stuff, of course, but like, we're very much involved. We're in all of it. I'm sure you saw, we buzzed around like
for sure.
crazy on the wedding day, right?
And you stayed after you were done working, which was awesome too. Yeah,
And
you weren't
party,
done.
right? They asked us to party with them, right?
We stayed until the dance floor closed.
Yeah, we were right there till the
That's
end.
so funny.
Getting shot with the CO2 gun.
Yeah. I mean, I got pretty heavy into those drinks at the end, so it was the last wedding of the year. You know, we went hard.
Yeah. One of my next questions segues pretty well is, are there any tools that you've used that you found in your business have given you an advantage, or something that is just really convenient for you, or something that you do with your clients, just something that you've implemented in your business that has really taken you, to the next level?
Yeah. In 2017, I started using a CRM, 17 Hats, and it's just to manage the back end. In 2019, I think it was, I switched to Dipsado. And man, I found that to be an absolute game changer to automate a significant portion of what I do. And that's a lot of years now. It's 7 years we've been kind of automating parts of it. It's a bit complicated to get set up because you really need to figure out the customer journey that you want to take someone on from the point that they reach out all the way to post ceremony. But once you really dial it in, you just kind of tighten and tweak it over time and to really kind of perfect it. So once you've got it set up, which again is not as easy as I'm making it sound, it can be slightly complicated, but it makes the process so smooth. I have couples all the time tell me that, because I obsess over the details on, okay, what's the correct timing for this email? When would I want someone to know this? When would I want? And I really spend a lot of time thinking through those details, because you're walking a fine line of like, I want to be relevant to them and interesting and give good value, but not be annoying and not have them be like, dude, this is too many emails, or this is too much, or I'm not ready to think about this just yet. So, and then at the same time, as things get busy, I also can't have a system where I open the floodgates and say, everyone email me. Like, I am actually not able to manage that. So my process is very refined. It's repeated over and over again. It's I've just obsessed on the details on it to make sure it works, it's good, and I continue forward with that. So I would recommend for anyone that's doing a lot of weddings in the beginning stages, I don't think you need it because they can also be expensive to use a CRM to manage things. It might be a cost that you don't really want to take on, but I think Dipsado is about $350 a year, but it paid for itself a million times over, including just the fact that I'd say 95% of the couples that book me pay by credit card. I want that automated process for them to be able to book as easy and smooth as possible. I don't want it to be I send out a proposal and they're like, well, I got to wait a couple weeks till we get paid. I got to think about this or that. If the option is to pay by credit card and I'll absorb the fees, no problem. It makes the process super tight, really smooth, and closes the loop quickly. That's what I recommend to anyone that's looking into it. Find a CRM that you like. Dipsado would get my vote. It's been great. But that was a serious pivot point for us in our business to be able to scale faster and produce a better experience.
I'm curious because I kind of know because when we talked, but I know you talked a lot about trying to do one wedding a day. How is that going for you? Are you, because I know you do a lot in the chapel. So I'm curious, when you do weddings like off at venues versus the chapel, is it the same or are you doing things differently in each one? And also how many are you doing? Because I think that's like a pretty cool thing to talk about as well. It's just like how many you're able to do.
They're pretty different. Actually, they're very different. So with Maeck Weddings, a couple is hiring me in the same way that Mike and Stephanie hired me to go to Chateau Laurier. Those are the larger events, larger celebrations. They are venues around, well, at this point, I mean, we've got another wedding coming up in Ottawa, but everywhere from Ottawa to Windsor, Toronto area, to the Muskoka area, like I'm kind of all over the place. I'm kind of willing to go wherever. How has that process been going to only do one per day? Difficult because there are times when I can do another one. So maybe I've got a 12 o'clock booked and someone reached up for 4 o'clock. Ooh, it's real tempting to say, I could definitely do that. And like, it's not a hard and fast rule. Sometimes if the venue's right beside each other and I'm like, well, this couple's like wicked cool and I'm up for it, and I'll say yes and I'll do it. But I'm really trying as much as possible to not do that quite as much, because before I would do more like 12:30, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock. And when you're doing 3 Maeck weddings, big events, those are very difficult. At the chapel, it's like a curated experience that is more service based than it is they've hired me. When you hire Maeck Weddings, you're hiring Jeff. I'm the dude for your day. When you're at the chapel, we've got a team of people that are going to handle your ceremony. I did 7 ceremonies yesterday. So like I can do a lot per day in that space because they are not stressful whatsoever. I find generally those couples are super easy, chilled out, go with the flow, no problem. But because I'm like obsessed on the details from Maeck Weddings, I'm able to bring that into the chapel and give them this crazy good experience that you just can't get at City Hall. Like, and it's only because I obsess over this stuff. Like City Hall just can't do it because they don't have the experience to be able to offer it. So I can give this seamless, fun experience in this beautiful spot and do lots per day. And we'll do, honestly, I'm not really sure, but it'll be between 400 and 500 ceremonies I'll do this year. It might sound crazy. It is a little bit crazy, but a large percentage of them are at the chapel and they're smaller and they're easier for me to manage because also they're coming to me. So I go to the chapel and I could have a ceremony booked at 12:30, 2 o'clock, 3:30, and 5 o'clock. I didn't go anywhere. I stayed in the same place, did all the ceremonies back to back. That's pretty simple. But if someone said, hey man, we need you to go to this venue in Cambridge, then you're going to Kitchener, then you're going to go to Toronto, it's stressful, right? When you add a drive in there, you can't, there's too many variables you can't predict.
Yeah.
That's when you start sweating and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't sign up for the stress. That's not what I want.
Yeah. I think that's incredible. Honestly, the thing that keeps popping to my mind is that I really hope, and I'm just manifesting this, I really hope that you guys, you and Michelle, can take this and like do it in other places. I really see that. I don't know why. It just literally keeps popping
Like
in.
franchise it kind of thing?
Yeah. Because we need it. I'm telling you, the City Hall weddings that we have here are literally in a dark, like dingy, like you said, tiny, there's no windows, like
conference room chairs.
It's like a tiny closet.
Right.
Like my studio is bigger than this, it's terrible. Like I can't even, I don't know if that's what it was like before you guys took it over, but I really hope that you guys consider doing this and expanding it. And I know that you couldn't be the person to go and do it, but like, I love the idea of you like expanding it, franchising it or whatever. Right. And like teaching your method. Anyways,
Right.
I'm throwing it out
We-
there, putting it in the universe, because I think
It's
that would be
true.
so cool.
Even as a photographer, we kind of dread, a city hall wedding. Like, we know it's not going to be beautiful. We know that
right.
to get nice photos, like it's all done outside and like downtown. And we try to just even get away from city hall because it doesn't look great.
Yeah.
It's tough. I've had conversations with a number of city halls actually, to bring this idea to them. You can imagine when you're dealing with council, dealing with city hall, there are some challenges that you face. I'm not certain what caused City of Kitchener to privatize it 30 or so years ago. I don't know why they did that, but I'm trying. I've had conversations with some that I think are now, as I've noticed, trying to take this model, except work it with their own staff. And so it's interesting to watch this evolve. So they're saying, oh, this is like a good idea. It seems to be working. We should try it. Now, the difference is when you're private, I have the freedom to do whatever I want. We're open 7 days a week. I'll do a ceremony anytime. When you're working with city staff, it's more like we do, a lot of these places do ceremonies. We have 2 ceremony spots. It's Friday at 12 and Friday at 3 p.m. That's it. Like, well, that doesn't really seem like a very good service to the people that live in the city. I mean, what if they can't make that? And so that's why we've just said we're going to do them 7 days a week. It's almost like Vegas style. And
Oh my God, you should offer that. You should oh my gosh, you should offer that.
You have no idea the ideas I have. I have the craziest ideas. So don't worry. There might be more to come on that.
I would come to that.
I am full on like crazy idea guy, and then saying, well, how could I do that? Like, that's my brain where I'm just like, how can I make that work? And then I go down this road of trying to figure it out. Most of the stuff that I do actually is a result of that, of me just getting obsessed on the details and figuring it out and saying, well, actually, I think this will work. So to be continued on the Vegas style chapel in Kitchener. We'll see.
Wow. Yeah, please do. Like, that would be so, I mean, anyways, to me, I think that there is a space, like, as you clearly have proved it, right? Like, you're doing almost 500 weddings a year. Maybe some of them are Maeck weddings and, the rest are chapel or whatever that is. But I don't even know how many City Hall does here. I mean, I don't know. Imagine if it was like a space, like you were just saying, like, I know how beautiful your space is. I know how modern it is. I know how much, like, how it won't look like a city hall wedding.
That's what we're missing.
I think probably every market is missing, right? Think about all the city halls across the world. I'm sure they all look very...
We've definitely expanded the reach of who would consider it, partly in our Maeck weddings following, people seeing what we're doing there. So we've been able to kind of show people, hey, you can have a beautiful small wedding. This is an option. But we get people from Toronto all the way to London, Guelph. Like, we're drawing from a pretty far radius to come to the chapel because they just don't want to go to their city hall because, like, dude, it's not nice at our city hall, and they have one time available and it's 3 months from now. It's been a great thing. And I'm trying to also, I emailed the mayor of a city 2 weeks ago and I said, hey, I'm doing a lot of weddings for people that are getting marriage licenses issued from your city hall. That means these are people that would actually probably be willing to pay you guys to do their wedding, but you're either not available or they just don't like what you're offering. I would prefer to bring them to you, give them a beautiful experience, and then the benefit is to the BIA, to the businesses downtown, to say, why don't you go have dinner? Why don't you go have lunch there? Like, we're really encouraging local photographers, other vendors to get involved in that space. And like, it's a great thing for the community. It's a great thing for businesses. It's really a win for everyone. And anyway, there's obstacles I'm trying to overcome. We'll see. It's a challenge, but I'm very thrilled that we have the chapel and that we're able to kind of do what we do.
All right. I think that we've gotten so much good information. We have gone crazy over time, and I'm so sorry
guys.
for that.
Sorry.
No, it's just been so much good information in here, and really, really appreciate you sharing all of this, because I think it's so important to sort of see that and encourage people to do things differently. And that's what you've done. It's what we've tried to do. No wonder we've gelled so easily, because it just makes sense. We're trying to do the best for our couples, and that shines through in everything that you do. How can people find you? What's the best way to get in touch with you if they want to get in touch with you? What would you prefer?
The easiest place to find me is on Instagram. Hey Jeff Maeck is probably the best place to find me. I'll point to our Maeck Weddings account from their DTK Chapel account. The Togetherness Collective. You can find all that stuff on kind of that Hey Jeff Maeck account. Also, if you're ever watching any outrageous reels, like, you'll probably find some there, and that's maybe a good place to go. Our website, mackweddings.com, also does a good job of pointing to those other directions too, where the people are looking for the city hall weddings or for the charity. So hop on there and check out some of the work that I'm doing. And if people want to chat, I love it. Like, I love nothing more than getting a random message from a stranger, sending a video back, which they don't expect, by the way, and just saying, dude, what a great message. It's super funny. I'm glad you reached out. And I think there's just something really personal and fun about sending like a video to someone you don't know on the internet who follows you. So I love doing that stuff.
Thank you so much. Honestly, it's been amazing. So do you have anything
Guys,
left?
I appreciate your time so much. I appreciate the work that you guys do. And thank you for having me on here. It's been so fun I'm so glad that we crossed paths, that we got to work together.
Yeah.
I'm excited that we get to do it again. I'm excited to watch from the sidelines the success that you guys are having.
Yeah.
Thanks for letting me chat with you guys today.